Ready, set, hut, hut.
As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sound of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about the 50, the 10, the 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
The Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride!
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
We've no doubt tonight they shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night!
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Golden Blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome back into another live stream here on the Country Roads webcast, April 22nd edition. Not a ton of news today, but we do have a few things to cover both in WVU football and WVU basketball. Towards the tail end, a couple small things we'll check out on the basketball side, a couple of things now official that we've talked about in the past. But on the football side, although there's not a ton of news to cover, there is exciting news to cover and positive news to cover as West Virginia is in the mix for one of the best offensive linemen potentially in the country in the transfer portal. That's an All-American, a freshman All-American offensive lineman that's transferring from Colorado, was believed to be their starting center for this upcoming season, started towards the tail end of the season for them last year, All-American by multiple sources. We'll talk more about that momentarily. And then we have another guy we're going to add to our commitment watch list here as we pull up our transfer tracker. That'll kind of be the front end portion of this show is going to be just talking about WVU football transfer target updates. And then the back half, we will talk a couple basketball things. Won't be too lengthy, but are going to bring you some good info because I think that this offensive line transfer is one to be really excited about that West Virginia is throwing their hat in the ring for to try and go out and get this guy. So we'll talk about him momentarily. But before we get to all that, just want to say I thank you guys for tuning into this episode, whether you're watching live or on the playback. Those of you that are watching live on Facebook or Twitch, be sure to come over to the Country Roads webcast YouTube channel. Subscribe here if you haven't already. That way you can get access to our pre-recorded videos and podcast episodes as well. You can stay up to date on all things WVU football and WVU basketball here on the YouTube side. And those of you that watch that way on YouTube, whether live or on the playback, help us out a ton just by hitting that thumbs up button. That pushes us out to find more Mountaineer football fans like yourself, and they can stay up to date on this news as well. So with no further ado, and those couple quick reminders out of the way, let's talk about it, guys, because I think this is big news right now that was broken earlier for West Virginia here in the transfer portal. They've made a handful of signings or gotten a handful of commitments already, I should say. They haven't quite signed yet, but this is one of the most exciting ones I've seen them reach out to, and this comes from On3 that shared this information earlier today. The player that we're going to be talking about was Colorado starting center Cash Cleveland, so it would be an in-conference transfer the Mountaineers are trying to get here, but like we said, he was an All-American on On3, and I'll talk about some other sources that had him rated as that as well, but he's officially in. Today is reported by Pete Nakos, and here are the schools that are in the mix, guys, and this is why we're talking about it. This is why it's of note for us, right, as Mountaineer fans. But among the schools in the mix, Arizona, Mississippi State, North Carolina, Illinois, Cal, Stanford, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, and, of course, WVU, his agent told On3. So West Virginia in the mix there. Of course, another Big 12 program, Texas Tech, involved there. They've been doing a great job in the transfer portal. A lot of heavy hitters. Obviously, a lot of programs really going to be pursuing Cash Cleveland. He's going to have a lot of suitors. So West Virginia definitely making strong offers and swinging for the fences here in the portal on the football side, much like the great job we've seen done in basketball. West Virginia trying to do the same on the football side, and this would be a massive pickup for West Virginia if they were able to grab Cash Cleveland out of the portal. They'll have to beat off some other competitors, but the fact that they're mentioned in the mix here right away is a positive sign for West Virginia already, and we're going to add him to our transfer contact list on the football side when we pull that up and talk about transfer targets momentarily. But let's talk a little bit more about Cash Cleveland specifically first before we update the transfer target list, because I definitely think it bears mentioning how talented he was when he got into the game last year at Colorado. And as a freshman there, he ended up playing in 6 games. And we're talking about a true freshman here, starting in their final 4 games, played 296 snaps, 234 pass blocking snaps, and only allowed 1 sack, 1 QB hit, and 2 hurries. And he was rated a freshman All-American by On3, a freshman All-American by PFF, and a freshman All-American by 247 Sports. So multiple services had him as an All-American last year as a true freshman, someone with multiple years remaining that really has a ton of potential. So, got to keep our eye on Cash Cleveland here. And let's talk a little bit further about him, because I did pull up the Colorado PFF numbers from last season, and he was a top 10 player on that Colorado offense. A few guys that are in that top 10, only had a few games under their belt as well. So, if you take them off, he's going to move well close to the top 5. And what's most impressive, I think, was his pass blocking grade at a 77.5. Super impressive pass blocking grade. His run blocking grade wasn't terrible either at a 63, but the pass blocking grade really good. And his overall offensive grade was nearly a 69, close to a 70 there, as he was a top 10 player on that Colorado offense. So super exciting news there, guys. That's why I wanted to lead off the show with it and kind of put it there front and center in the title of this live stream, because I think it's big news that West Virginia is in the mix for Cash Cleveland. They're a really talented offensive lineman, and West Virginia seems to be targeting offensive linemen in the portal. But let's talk about some of those players that they are after. Let's pull up our transfer target list here on the football side now that we've added Cash Cleveland's name to the list here. And you may also see another name added to the list, and it is another offensive lineman, and that's Jase Aisosa from Oklahoma. So, multiple Power 5 offensive linemen West Virginia's going after here, or I guess Power 4 now, whichever you want to say it. But Aisosa was added to the list because I believe he was in for a visit. We know West Virginia's had multiple players in for a visit recently. We've gotten commitments from, so some of those here, as we just recently got Christian Hamilton and Eddie Kelly. We told you guys in the last stream that Gary Bryant's on commitment watch, Shea Taylor's on commitment watch, because both those guys were in town. Don't know if we've offered Cash Cleveland yet, but assuming that we're in the mix there, I would say that we have. And hopefully, if we could get him to Morgantown, that would be huge. But Aisosa did visit, so maybe we should add him to our commitment watch list as well, considering he was on campus. He's someone with multiple years left as well. We'll talk about him momentarily, but he wasn't the only visitor as well. So let's talk a bit about that, because I think this is another name to add to the commitment watch list here. And that is another wide receiver West Virginia is after. This one coming from South Carolina State, and he was in on a visit this weekend as well. Transfer receiver Justin Smith-Brown. Jeffrey Cobb of Blue Gold News putting this out on social media. There you see a picture of Justin Smith-Brown on his visit. So how about a little bit of info on Justin Smith-Brown, the wide receiver there? Let's pull up the ESPN stats here. He would be a guy on his final year of eligibility, would be transferring up there. Florida native, 6'1", 190-pounder, good speed from what I understand. And you could kind of tell that in his targets, getting nearly 14 yards per catch and, 750 yards and only 54 receptions. Did have 4 touchdowns there at South Carolina State, as you see in the numbers there for Justin Smith-Brown. Pulled up the South Carolina State offensive grades on PFF as well, because you are able to pull up the FCS programs on there. And I did have him right here. Let's see. He was a 67 offensive grade, and that's not showing the receiving grade here, but his grade in the passing game is right around there, is at a 66 grade there as well. which put him as a top 15 player on that offense. A couple of these guys in here only played 3 or 4 games. So you're looking at probably a top 10 player on the South Carolina State offense as well that West Virginia is going after here in Justin Smith-Brown. And I think he has good speed, and we know West Virginia was going to add at least a couple receivers to the mix there after they've lost some to the portal. And it was one of the positions that Rich Rod continually mentioning, wanted to add guys. And we knew offensive line was going to be a big thing West Virginia was targeting. That's why they're going after the freshman All-American Cash Cleveland that we talked about. But they've already gotten a commitment from one offensive lineman, which we'll pull back up our transfer tracker momentarily, talk about other guys that are on commitment watch, and then we'll take a look at the transfer in list. But a guy that visited West Virginia is Oklahoma offensive lineman Jase Aisosa. And here's a little bit of info on him from the Sooners 247 site, talking about him back when he entered the portal, which was just back on Friday. So West Virginia was able to get him in quickly. Redshirt freshman and was a backup center there at Oklahoma, entered the transfer portal, 4 years of eligibility remaining. He put on social media, I planned into the transfer portal with 4 years of eligibility left. Thank you, Oklahoma, for the experiences this past year, and thank you, the coaches, for giving me the opportunity to be here. He came to the Sooners as a 3-star prospect, played offensive tackle throughout his high school career, which I think this is interesting, as West Virginia probably recruiting him as a tackle instead of a center. They've already done that previously once, right? There was a guy, Kimo Makanaole, who's been on the offensive line at WVU, was an offensive lineman originally out of high school, but transitioned to defense at LSU. West Virginia brought him back to his original position. Jase Aisosa, originally an offensive tackle, had to play some center there at Oklahoma. Do they move him back to his original position and recruit him as a tackle? I think that that's probably the case here for Jase Aisosa, because it was out of necessity that he moved to center for the Sooners and served as a backup for the entirety of his lone year with Oklahoma. But interesting backstory here, didn't start playing football until his sophomore season. Originally from Texas, his family moved to Oklahoma to begin his freshman year, and his focus was on basketball until he gained some weight during the pandemic. So yet again, I think the basketball background probably is a good sign that he's athletic enough to play the tackle position, and West Virginia could very much move him back to that original position that he played there of tackle. Let me pull up his height and weight here, because I did have it a bit ago, and then I didn't write it down. I meant to do that. I think it was 6'3", 330, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see if I can get it pulled up here. Yeah, 6'3", 331 is what he's listed at when he was on Oklahoma's roster there. And like I said, I think West Virginia might be recruiting him as a tackle, but who knows, could be recruiting him as a center as well. Either way there, it's obviously a versatile guy that's played multiple positions already, and getting recruited to Oklahoma, he's talented there to get recruited to that SEC program that the Sooners have there. So let's pull back up our transfer target list, talk a little bit more about this, because then I want to talk about one more guy that we may add to this list in the near future. It's someone that I'm keeping an eye on. But before we do that, let's talk about the transfers West Virginia got so far. Of course, they already have one offensive lineman in the North Alabama transfer, Mikel Clay, 6'5", 300-pounder. A really talented tight end in Grayson Barnes from Northern Illinois that I think has a great chance to be the starting tight end for the Mountaineers this upcoming season. Really good receiving tight end. Nick Taylor, the cornerback from App State, I think you get, because the Rod West connection, has multiple years of eligibility remaining, a good depth piece to have. Wide receiver Christian Hamilton from UNC, 6 foot, 190-pound receiver, former 4-star recruit, good speed. When he gets on the field, he has great game speed. I think he could maybe get in the mix as a return man, and we know West Virginia needed bodies there at the receiver position, and he's one that UNC thought had a bright future, was behind some seniors last season, but has a high ceiling. West Virginia nabs him up. And then they also get Eddie Kelly, who I think has a good chance to earn a ton of playing time on West Virginia's defensive line, if not compete for a starting job, coming from Missouri. So another power conference transfer. Those two we talked about on the previous stream. And I like Eddie Kelly because he could also maybe play some bandit for you and give you a different look there at that bandit spot with his big size there at 6'4", 280 pounds. So as far as transfer targets West Virginia's after, here is the list that I've been able to compile. Like I've said, on all these updates, it's not extensive by any means, I don't believe. I don't know if this is every player West Virginia is in contact with. Sometimes they try and get these guys in under the radar. That's what happened with Mikel Clay. We didn't know about him until he committed, and sometimes that's by design. They want to keep this thing under wraps a little bit as much as possible with some of these guys they're trying to get to commit and to signing in a hurry. But these are guys that I've been able to see West Virginia has reached out to. Some of these they've offered scholarships to. Some of these have came in on visits. Of course, one of the main topics here of this show was Cash Cleveland, because he is a freshman All-American and West Virginia is in the mix for him according to On3. But who should we be on commitment watch for? I think we can put Aisosa on that list since he apparently is on campus for a visit. We know Justin Smith-Brown visited, so I think he's on commitment watch. And then in the previous stream, I told you guys, watch out for Gary Bryant and Shea Taylor, 2 linebackers that I think we can put on commitment watch for West Virginia as well. So that's what I'm talking about here as far as targets that we should be on commitment watch for. And one of the targets I'm super excited about is, of course, Cash Cleveland. We'll keep our eyes on that one, see how it develops for West Virginia as they target that freshman All-American. But then the last thing I want to talk about here on the football side was an interesting piece of news that just came out yesterday, because it's a Jacksonville State starting offensive lineman that just entered the transfer portal. Now, we see West Virginia in the mix for some power conference guys. Not saying that they're necessarily going to target this young man, but I think the fact that he does have the history with Coach Rod and company makes us definitely look at it and just keep an eye on it and see. Maybe we'll add him to the target list in the near future if we do hear that West Virginia has reached out to him. But we know West Virginia has brought in some of those other Jack State players, and he was a starter there for the Gamecocks. So as this article states, a starter on Jack State's offensive line is set to play for a new team next season. He announced his intention to enter the portal on Monday, 4 days after Jack State's spring game. 6'2", 305-pound transfer. He has 2 seasons of eligibility remaining. There you see his announcement, which he put out on social media there. Last season saw Hartley start the final 8 games at center. And I think that's interesting because we do see West Virginia targeting centers right now. Aisosa has played center. We don't know if he's going to play center or tackle. Cash Cleveland obviously is a center. So this is one I think we'll keep an eye on. Maybe if you don't end up getting Cash Cleveland, or you feel like you're too far away, some other programs are ahead of you, then maybe you reach out to this young man as another plan to go with here. If you're trying to target centers, we'll see what happens. But he started the final 8 games for Jacksonville State following injury to their starting center in the first 5 games. Native of Havana, Florida, played at left guard his freshman season. So obviously another guy that's versatile, could play multiple spots there on the interior. And, Jack State obviously had success with him there playing center, as he played the majority of that season. And they had one of the top rushing attacks in the country that we've talked about here previously. 1,600 yards for the running back, 1,300 yards for the quarterback. I believe it was the number 3 offense in college football in terms of rushing numbers. So Davion Hartley is one to keep an eye on, I think, just because he is transferring from Jacksonville State. So we're not going to add him to the target list just yet, but maybe a name to add there to in the future. So that's what I had on the football side. I think some exciting news that West Virginia is reaching out to Cash Cleveland and in the mix for him, a freshman All-American offensive line transfer, and then an update to the target list with Josh Aisosa's name on there. We'll put him on commitment watch with another slew of guys that I think we'll keep an eye on to hopefully commit in the near future on the football side. And if any of those guys do just that, we'll be back with another update here in live streams as we've been covering this transfer portal movement on the football side and on the basketball side as well, where we're still keeping our eyes on Marcus Smurf Millender and hoping for a commitment from him in the near future as that basketball class shapes up to be really good. And we're hoping football is going to have one that's just as good. But let's switch gears and talk a little bit about basketball here, because we do have a couple of press releases making a couple of pieces of news that we previously reported on now official. And that being a coaching staff update, as Jase Herl now officially announced. We had Phil Forte's announcement on the previous stream. Now we have Jase Herl's. And we also have Treysen Eaglestaff officially signed, so we don't have to sweat that out anymore. He's now signed with the Mountaineers. So let's lead it off with the Treysen Eaglestaff press release, and then I will get to some of your all's comments here after we get through these last couple pieces of basketball news. I'll get some of your all's questions and comments before we wrap up on this one. But on the basketball side here, we had Coach Hodge announce the signing of Treysen Eaglestaff just a little bit earlier this evening. West Virginia University men's basketball coach Ross Hodge announced the signing of Treysen Eaglestaff to a grant and aid for the 25-26 season. Eaglestaff is a 6'6", 190-pound senior guard from Bismarck, North Dakota. Comes to West Virginia from North Dakota, where he played the last 3 seasons. Coach Hodge's statement on his addition: "We are happy to have Treysen join the West Virginia basketball program. Treysen has the ability to play multiple positions, and his size and skill are a great combination for us. He possesses a passion for improvement and work ethic that will allow him to continue to improve." Last season, Eaglestaff set a Summit League tournament record with 51 points in North Dakota's victory over South Dakota State. We've raved about that game in the past, showed some highlights of it on the previous stream. but the 51 points were the most by a college basketball player since Houston Baptist Darius Lee scored 52 points, and that took 4 overtimes back in 2022. He's the only D1 player this past season with multiple games of 40 points or more. So that last sentence right there is very telling that he's the only D1 player this past season that had multiple 40-point games. He averaged nearly 19 points while shooting 42% from the field, 36% from three, and 79% from the free throw line. Started all 33 games, averaging nearly 32 minutes per game. He made 84 3-point field goals on the season. He scored 40 points against number 6 Alabama, which is a game that we've talked about in the past as well. Then talks about his other years there, sophomore, freshman, junior years. But let's go here to the bottom part of his bio here, where we talk about him attending Bismarck High, where he was named Mr. Basketball in the state of North Dakota following the 21-22 season, where he had 7 school records there in high school, including the career leader in points, the career leader in 3 points made, the season leader in 3-pointers made, the season leader in single season points, most points in a game. So he had 52 points even in a high school game as well. Made 18 field goals in a game, which was a high school record, and most threes in a game with 10. He averaged 30 points per game and 8 rebounds as a senior. So, I won't wax poetic too much about Treysen Eaglestaff. I think you guys have heard me do that about 3 or 4 streams in a row now, but a super exciting addition, and glad to see that it's finally official with that announcement there. And so all the transfers that we've been covering here on the basketball transfer updates have now been made official. So that means they've been added to the official roster there on the WVU site. So you can take a look at it here. This is what it looks like thus far. Treysen Eaglestaff is listed as a forward. So it looks like he will be probably playing the 3 for WVU as you're trying to put together a starting 5. Jackson Fields listed as a forward at 6'8", 210. Jasper Floyd, of course, at guard, 6'3", 190. All 3 of those being seniors. You have Honor Huff, another one that I've waxed poetic about a ton. I'm super excited about. Nation's leader in 3-point makes last year, 5'10", 168-pound senior guard. Brennan Lorient, the main guy I was hoping we'd get from North Texas. Of course, we did end up with him, 6'9", 215-pound senior. And Harlan Obioha, the 7-foot transfer, 280 pounds, a great frame there for another senior center there. And then, of course, we have the freshman, DJ Thomas, who is officially signed and on board as well. So that's what the roster looks like thus far. As West Virginia still targets some more transfer pieces. We talked about that on the previous stream. We're keeping our eyes on Marcus Millender, who just completed his visit to WVU. Would love to have add him into the mix at guard as well. I think with what you're looking at right now, just with this roster that we have currently with the guys signed, if you're putting together a starting 5, I think you would have Jasper Floyd as the point guard, Honor Huff as the 2 guard. You would have Treysen Eaglestaff as the 3-man. You would have Brennan Lorient at the 4 spot and Harlan Obioha as the center. You'd have DJ Thomas providing depth. You'd have Jackson Fields providing depth. And you'd have Chance Moore providing depth as well. He's not on this roster yet, but we know West Virginia has him committed also. So we know another guard is needed. So hopefully we'll have our fingers crossed for Marcus Millender in the near future. But there is the announcement of the official signing of Eaglestaff, which we are super excited about. Like I've said time and time again, I think he's the best portal pickup for West Virginia in the portal era that they've went out and gotten themselves. You exclude Tucker DeVries from that conversation because West Virginia didn't really have to recruit him. And then the other piece of news that's now official, we talked about in the past that we knew, Phil Forte, we knew Jase Herl were going to be on this coaching staff. Phil Forte has been doing an excellent job already. And then these are 2 big pieces, I think, because Forte was kind of the offensive guy at North Texas, and Jase Herl was very much the defensive guy, kind of how Ross Hodge was to Grant McCaslin when Coach McCaslin was there. And Jase Herl now becomes official with the announcement earlier this morning. Jase Herl joins the men's basketball staff. Ross Hodge announcing his hiring as an assistant coach. Herl is a native of Goodland, Kansas, spent the last 2 seasons as an assistant coach at North Texas. He has 15 years of coaching experience, including a period as the interim head coach at Colorado State. I never realized that, actually. But we get the statement here from Coach Hodge. Jase is the complete package when it comes to coaching basketball. He has a great feel for people and the game of basketball. He impacts all areas of our program, and I'm thrilled to have him in Morgantown. This past season, when he was at North Texas, of course, North Texas won the 27 games and advanced to the semifinals of the NIT. They ranked third in the country in scoring defense, which we know, like I said, he's a pivotal part of that. Only 1.5 points behind first place Houston there. Had the ACC's second most efficient offense and second most efficient defense. The 27 wins were the second most single season wins in North Texas history, and 14 league victories were tied for the third most conference victories in school history, and they had 5 players earn all conference honors. We get the statement here from Jase Herl. He says, I'm extremely blessed to be at West Virginia University with Coach Hodge and the rest of the staff. The history and support here at WVU are second to none. Getting to compete in the Big 12 with the nation's best is what you dream about when you get into this profession. He joined UNT after 5 seasons at Missouri State. Before that, he was the assistant coach at Colorado State and served as the interim head coach in 2018, and he was only 30 years old when he did that. So I think both with Phil Forte and Coach Herl here, you see guys that have good experience already, but are also young in the profession and still have a really high ceiling, and are going to only continue to get better. He led Colorado State to a win over San Jose State in his first game as interim head coach. Before that, he was the inaugural head coach at Northwest Kansas Tech College in his hometown of Goodland, Kansas. His coaching career began at his alma mater, Colorado Mesa, where he graduated from in 2010. He served as assistant coach after graduation and helped guide them to the 2011 Division II tournament. So super excited to have Jase Herl on the staff now as well officially, which let's pull up that coaching staff now that we've looked at the official roster on the university's page, because we now do have, of course, 3 coaches now official. If you count Ross Hodge, we have Phil Forte, who we talked about on the previous stream, and now Jase Herl as well. So that's a look at the coaching staff thus far. We looked at the roster a little bit ago, and that's where the little pieces of basketball news that I wanted to get to here. Like I said, not going to be a lengthy show. Didn't have a ton of news, but I think some big important news with the Cash Cleveland news on the football transfer side, and some other guys to watch for that we can put on commitment watch there as West Virginia's transfer target list grows for football. And then some, positive news that's finally official on the basketball side there to talk about. So with that being said, I'm going to take a swig of my water, then I will catch up on some of y'all's questions and comments, and we will call it a show here for this April 22nd live stream. I appreciate that. WVU Wildman 82 channel member says, finally catching a live show. Smash that like button and subscribe. Appreciate that, and share some of our custom emojis there that are available to channel members. Yeah, appreciate those updates there, WVU Wildman 82. Yeah, if you guys would, it doesn't cost you anything to hit the thumbs up button, help us out with the YouTube algorithm, or to subscribe. And all that's going to help you do is stay up to date on the transfer portal news for both WVU football and WVU basketball. We'll continue to keep you guys up to date on that. Appreciate that update there. With that info, WVU Wildman 82. Mountaineer Athletes, another channel member. Let's go, man. Let's go indeed. Tosh Miller says, hit that like button. Appreciate that, Tosh. Channel member is always good here to remind everybody to hit that like button that's in here live. But you guys that are watching on the playback can do it as well. I hate to hear that, Pokemon Kid Entertainment. I hate to hear that, man. Said I had a buddy who lives in Morgantown that passed away today. Sorry to hear that, man. That's always tough, brother. But keep your head up. Hopefully they're in a better place now. But I hate to hear that, Pokemon Kid Entertainment. Hopefully your day gets better, man. Like I said, just try and keep your head up. W Wildman A2 says, how about our baseball team? 14th in the talks for hosting the Super Regionals. Yep, got that top 15 nearly ranking there, and I hope that they get to host in Morgantown. If so, I may try and get back up there and watch another baseball game. W Wildman A2, can you believe it? Can you believe it? Hey, I see my mom in the chat. Hey, love you too, Mom. Y'all be nice to her there if she's still in the chat there. WVU chats, it would be a huge get at a real position of need. Yeah, we know offensive line was something West Virginia needed. I do like Landon Livingston. I think he has good potential for the future, but maybe he's a little bit green right now. Cash Cleveland, you get someone that actually has experience starting games and starting them in the Big 12 conference and doing it at a freshman All-American level. So it's no knock on Landon Livingston to say it's a position of need, because I think if you can go out and get a guy that has starting experience in the conference, that's only going to make your team better, and in turn make Landon Livingston better competing with them every day as well. So we'll see how it plays out, but definitely will be a huge get for sure, WVU Chad. Let's see. Did they commit? Okay, we might have a couple updates here in the chat. Appreciate you guys. Linebacker Bryant committed to Oklahoma State, did he? And the South Carolina wideout commit to OSU. Did that happen already? It was just in over the weekend, but it is possible. Let's see. Let me do a quick update here. If so, we'll go ahead and pull the target list back up and remove them really quickly. Appreciate that update, guys. Let's see here. South Carolina State, Justin Smith Brown. Not seeing anything where he committed to Oklahoma State. It may have been another receiver, though, that you're thinking of there, Pokemon Kid Entertainment. But let's see about Gary Bryant. If Gary Bryant committed elsewhere, then I'm thinking that definitely means there's probably, West Virginia looking into Shea Taylor more specifically. Let's see. He visited USC. I do see that for Gary Bryant, but I don't see that he committed to Oklahoma State. The only thing I'm seeing on him is that he's got visits to USC, Cal, West Virginia, and Syracuse. So I'm going to keep them on the target list for now. So it doesn't, unless, Twitter's just, not showing their commitment tweets yet, but I pulled up both their X pages and didn't see it on there. So maybe still good news there for sure. WVU Chad said missing Chance Moore, who signed also. Yeah, I don't know why they don't have him on the official roster yet, because I thought that we had already shared the press release of his signing as well. Hopefully that'll come on there in the next few days, and we'll have the complete roster thus far already on there. Hey, channel member Big Dan T sharing some custom emojis in there as well. Always appreciate you, Big Dan T. I think you can have 5, as far as I understand it, on the basketball side. WVU Chad asked how many coaches Hodge expect to have. I think you can have 5. So I think there'll be at least 2 or 3 more that we're looking at. A couple of names have already been reported. Can't think of them right now off the top of my head, but I think there's at least one other name that's going to be added soon that's been previously reported, much like Forte and Herl were before their announcements were official for sure. Hey, Eric Flowers, good to see you in here as well, man. Appreciate you. Ernie B says basketball is killing it so far. Are you concerned the football is behind with regard to portal additions? Hopefully we'll be able to pick up some big names in football also. No, not necessarily, man. I think that they don't have to add as many in this cycle as they did in the first cycle. You saw in the first transfer portal cycle, they were picking them up boom, 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 left and right. And they've still been doing that to some extent in this cycle, getting 2 commitments in one day, on 2 different occasions. And I think we're going to have multiple commitments coming up in the near future as well. But I also think in this cycle, they're probably only looking to add, 10 to 15 guys versus as many as they added last time. They could surprise me, but that's what I'm kind of thinking. And I think that they're, really probably trying to be more, what's the word I'm looking for here? Analytical, maybe, just kind of more focused in their, what they're going after as far as just going after positions of need. Whereas before they knew they had this other portal window coming up, so they could really bring in as many as they wanted. And then kind of, it was almost like a tryout period here in spring, right? Because they knew they were going to have guys leave anyway. So that's kind of why you've seen them hit it so hot and heavy that first go around and bring in, as many as they could, just some good football players they thought could compete, and then just kind of weed out the roster from there. I think they're being a little bit more targeted in what they're going after this go round. You've seen them target a lot of the positions of need that we've talked about, linebacker, wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line. And I think they're going to continue to do it that way. So not concerned. And especially, now with the news of some of the guys that they're targeting, like we talked about in this update with Cash Cleveland, the freshman All-American center, I think they're going to swing for the fences on the football side as well. And when it's all said and done, I think we'll be really excited with some of the guys that they add here in this transfer portal window, because I think they'll most likely all be contributors for this upcoming season. I think, multiple of the guys they've added thus far are kind of that way. I think Eddie Kelly's one. I think that Mikkel Clay's probably one as well. Grayson Barnes is certainly one. So I think you're going to add a lot of contributors in this cycle. So I think that we'll end up being excited for the football portal class. Hopefully as excited as we are for the basketball portal class, which is shaping up to be a really good one. And hopefully it continues that way. Like I said, we'll continue to cover the news for both the basketball portal and the football portal here on this one. W Wildman said, going to turn you into a baseball fan yet, at least a WVU baseball fan. Yeah, I've been following them a little bit this year. I haven't watched any of the games on ESPN Plus. I did turn one on and watch a couple innings, but the game I watched in person, I did enjoy, and I have been following it through highlights and keeping up with their record. 14 straight now. Was it 34-4, right? Have only lost 1 series on the year. So I've been keeping up with them a little bit, man. I'm, baseball is not my favorite sport, but man, I love what WVU is doing in that game of baseball. So I've been following the WVU baseball team a little bit, and I'm going to continue to. And like I said, if they get to host a regional, I'm going to try and get back up there and watch another one in person. And I think that they're going to keep that success rolling. Why not, man? Let's have a hell of a year in baseball, and hopefully we end up having a hell of a year in football and in basketball. Like that, we got positive portal updates for both of those sports here on this show. And I appreciate you guys for tuning into this one here. Like I said, we'll continue to keep you guys up to date for the roster for both WVU football, WVU basketball. So be sure you're subscribed here to the channel if you haven't already. Those of you that watch live on Facebook and Twitch, be sure to come over to the YouTube to do just that. And if you watched on YouTube, whether live or on the playback, hit the thumbs up button before you head out. Help us with the algorithm. If you didn't get a chance to chat with us live here, throw your thoughts in the comments. Always appreciate those interactions as we continue to try and grow the Country Roads webcast community throughout Mountaineer Nation. Having said that, I'll talk to you guys again soon, hopefully with some more positive portal news in the future for both WVU football and WVU basketball. I think commitments are going to continue to roll in, and can't wait to talk about the next one, guys. As always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.